Hello, welcome to the show that I at least announced the last episode in advance. This one I was like, we'll tweet, we'll do the thing.
Surprise!
Hooray! I do have a Blue Sky account that I've never used. I basically used it once to friend Emily, I think. And that was literally it.
I've been live tweeting figure skating. Actually, Blue Sky has been amazing for me, although I feel like people are going to be very disappointed by my presence there because it's not going to be at all like previously I had the anime personal account and my League of Legends account, and now I'm just going to be myself on Blue Sky, and I feel like you either like that or you don't. And you might not like me live tweeting figure skating at 5 a.m.
Emily has evolved past the internalized misogyny. All right. Now for the vague reference to the pre-show conversation.
People are like, what are pre-show conversation?
Yeah, so we had, oh my god, I have like 3 versions of the run of show here.
Yeah. I scrolled up to one of them.
Yeah, I think I have a finalized one. Yeah. So we are going to be talking about roster rumor things and things that happened, which, yay, you either like that or you don't, to quote Emily Rand. But I'm going to start us off with a fun game show.
Oh god.
And
do I have to look?
You don't have to look at anything. In fact, it's better if you do not look and you just do as I say. So,
got it.
Are you familiar with ad libs?
No. I mean, ad-libbing as a concept.
Or Mad Libs? Did you ever play Mad Libs as a kid?
Yeah.
Okay. We're playing Mad Libs. So,
but with roster rumors? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, just vaguely, I mentioned roster rumors. It doesn't necessarily have to be roster rumors. But give me 3 esports publications.
Publications.
Esports publications.
Oh god, okay.
Do they exist?
Do they exist?
There's at least 1 that I can think of. 2 that I can think of. Slowly getting there.
I'm trying to think of like the first one that comes to mind weirdly is Esports Maniacos. Yeah, which I can't even read. Yeah, I can't even read because I can't read Spanish. But yeah, that was the first one. I guess Sheep Esports. And do I know of a 3rd esports publication right now? I guess like what? Esports Observer?
Sure, we'll do that one.
Is one?
All right, sick. I need 3 player names.
Ooh. Let's go. Ruler.
Okay.
Chovy. And 369.
Okay, nice.
I should have done cards actually.
Okay, I need 3 regional leagues. Pick any.
LPL.
Okay.
LCK. And what is the APAC called now? Wait.
It has a
LCP.
LCD.
Right? LCP?
LCP.
I think.
League Championship Pacific. Yeah. Exactly. LCP. Okay. We need 3 team names.
All right. Let's go with something that just makes no sense whatsoever.
I'm done.
So I'll go G2.
Okay.
C9 and Furia.
Cool. Furia's had some ones that could fit into this lately.
They've had some wild ones, yeah.
All right. And then I need 3 more player names.
Oh god. Okay.
I mean, this one should be easy. There are a lot of them.
Yeah, Berserker. No, I'm trying to think of what the more like cursed ones could be, but I'll go Berserker and Mickey X and Karsa. This is where I'll throw Karsa in.
All right. Okay. I should have done this in a more sophisticated way, but Oh, okay. Actually,
I'm curious to see what
I actually need
roster rumors I've created.
Three more team names.
All right, let's go. Since they just had their roster announcement this morning, Los Ratones. No, I'm not pronouncing that correctly.
Los Ratones. I think it's correct.
Let's go. T1, World Champions, and nice. Let's go Gen G, MSI Champions.
We did it. All right, that's more or less what I've got. Now I have to remember how exactly I set this up.
Oh my god.
Okay. Okay, so I have the ad lib on the stream. Ideally, I'd be able to drop the items in, but I am not this sophisticated today. Actually, I know what I can do. So, the first one is this is not what I want. That is maybe. So the ad lib is on screen for those of you who are watching the screen. So you can kind of, if you remember what Emily said, you can kind of fill in the blanks.
I don't even remember what I said now.
And then I've got the ad lib numbers here, but let's see if I can edit it.
Oh, so it'd be like, I'm trying to think of who I said first. Esports Maniacos confirms that Ruler is considering a big offer from, what was the first team I mentioned?
Yeah, so Esports Maniacos confirms. I'm gonna pull this up. All right,
God, why am I blanking as to what the first team I mentioned?
Esports Maniacos confirms that Ruler is considering an offer from LPL, as well as from his domestic team G2.
Nice.
But only if Berserker nice. Berserker will also join the team. This means that
interesting. Okay, one of them is role swapping. That
Ruler will leave Los Ratones. Nice. All right. Good. Next one.
Beautiful.
Sheep Esports confirms that Chovy is considering a big offer from LCK. Okay, normal so far.
All right.
From domestic team C9. Not exactly accurate, but we're getting there. But only if Nikki X, okay, will also join the team. This means that Chovy will leave T1. All right, that's gonna make something spicy. Yeah, it
almost matched up with Gen G. Actually, that would have been really funny.
And then we've got Esports Observer, which is known for its high quality roster reporting. Confirms that 369 is considering a big offer from LCK, okay, spicy, as well as from domestic league, a domestic team, Furia, okay. I wasn't aware that was working, but only if Karsa, okay.
Oh wow, okay, so this accidentally reunited Karsa and 369, which apparently is a legitimate roster to AL, I think I saw.
This means that 369 will leave Gen G. So,
RIP.
Good ones. We almost had ones that made sense. Anyway, shout out to Ashley King, because I literally just stole it from her tweet. I think from like a little bit of, I think this is probably from last year.
I feel like it's older because she makes a point
to read all the time.
Yeah, she's been doing this, I feel like, for at least 3 years at this point. And every time someone, like, or not even someone, multiple people follow it.
Yeah.
All for it.
It's very silly. But anyway, we can throw these up on our Twitters, and some of them are semi-legitimate, I'm sure.
How I accidentally went into the 369 Carsa reunion. Nice.
This is what,
good job, me.
This reads exactly like what I would get if I asked ChatGPT to summarize roster moves from this offseason. Probably, yeah, it's pretty accurate. But anyway, see, we don't need ChatGPT. We don't need to release.
We need our brains.
Additional carbon emissions for zero reason when we can just write our own emails. Chat.
We're still spreading misinformation, though.
Yeah, we are. And we can do that without ChatGPT as well. It's amazing. All right.
That was good. That was a fun exercise.
Anyway, actual rumors, way less fun than Ruler leaving Los Ratones to play with Berserker.
Yeah. I wanted to see if he would role swap. I'm assuming it's Berserker.
Yeah. That's
Ruler has seniority.
The actual speculation here is who's role swapping. All right, so the first and most important and shocking rumor of the offseason, of course, is that Reckless is leaving T1 and you said Los Ratones.
Yeah, they just came out with an announcement this morning.
Oh yeah. That's a big one. Good shit. It is a very, very interesting roster for sure. It reminds me of the SFM, like the VCS announcement for his team, because it's just like SFM in a giant middle of the image, and he's not playing. That's what it reminds me of.
And K-Drill is in
K-Drill,
yeah. He is coaching, yeah.
It's literally the same thing.
The Baus, Velia, Nemesis, Crowny, and Reckless.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, this isn't exactly a rumor. It was on my list of things because I kind of just wanted to, because there's like I know a certain Reckless fan who was very, very upset that he left T1 and didn't get to play at Worlds, but I'm not gonna name and shame this person. Anyway, but I think this is a roster that people will be at least excited for because it's very much in line with like the streamer branding teams, right? So it'll at least be a team that people will watch whatever league they compete in for, right? Which I think is only helpful for viewership.
First team, this is like going way back. The first team I remember doing this, and like the first argument that I saw people having about like because it happened at the time it was called Academy. Yes. NACL has gone through so many like changes in terms of what it's called, but like I'm pretty sure it was Academy because it was Challengers and it was Academy, and then it went back to anyway. Not the point. The point is this was a Mark Z coached team with like a whole bunch of streamers. It was the Echo Fox Academy team.
Echo Fox? Yeah, that was Academy at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like basically all X-Dig or something. No.
Yeah. It was like I'm a Cutie Pie was on there.
It was like Scar.
And I remember I remember people were getting really mad about it at the time. And now that is like a thing that just happens. So like for me, the weird thing is, or not weird, but it's just interesting to see how attitudes have changed like over the years in terms of previously it was like you guys are taking spots away, how dare you, And then the people who were arguing for the team were like, hey, this is going to bring way more viewership to Academy because no one watches it right now. And now it's just like a normal thing where people are like, woo, let's go. So yeah, I just think that's interesting. It's not, I'm not saying it's like good or bad. I'm just saying the argument is like no longer exists essentially.
Yeah, I think it no longer exists, but I think there were a lot of controversies around that because it was particularly when Academy was sort of launched. And it was like the year Academy was effectively launched with like franchising, etc., right? And the argument was that franchising, that like the team owners and the org owners kept putting out was that franchising would allow for more talent development. That was like the big pitch that made the community like kind of say, yeah, I agree, because this was also coming off of NACL promotion being like fake.
Essentially farmed by teams to sell slots, right? You like, just take like a bunch of ex LCS players, put them on a roster, and qualify, and then sell the spot. Yeah.
So NACL was also not developing talent in the North American region. So the argument was that Academy would let, like the existence of Academy, and then there were several regulations that, right, Ice Chest, like tried to force, like, oh, you have to have only X amount, which I think would have been bad, right? Like you can't have this amount of LCS time in order to be signed to Academy roster. You have to be like relatively rookie-ish, right? Which I think ultimately would have been bad, but it was like in the wake of those kind of regulations failing, that I think made the Echo Fox roster particularly controversial. So that's kind of where I see that being a thing. But I also know that like obviously the ERL ecosystem is so robust that there's a lot of things going on. So I don't think that controversial is applicable. I think about Origin, and I know it's not like the same by any stretch of the imagination, but it was the first time a really big like X player made a team that I can remember, unless I'm forgetting one. And the first iteration of it was successful, arguably, and then the rest was something.
The meme with like the
motivation work improvement
players.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was recently my boss was asking us to come up with like 4 words that encapsulated Boise State Esports, and I literally just sent him that, and I was like, I'm not doing this. Nice try.
Oh my god.
It was a good time. In theory, an innocent request, so I'm just an asshole, but also funny.
Not an innocent request in esports.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that was the first year of franchising, because that was 2017. And the other thing I remember about that team outside of like the capital D discourse was the fact that Mark was tearing his hair out trying to coach them, because like they basically didn't want a coach, they just wanted someone to like submit paperwork. Yeah. And I think he really wanted to do like I don't think he was coming in and expecting like he was going to actually coach the team and they were going to be super successful, but I think I definitely got the distinct impression from him that he wanted to be like a bigger part of it, and they're just like, no, we just need someone to like make sure we submit the roster on the week, and that because they just didn't want to do any of the administrative stuff, so he ended up doing all of it.
Yeah, arguably Gamers 2 was before Origin, but also it didn't have like the amount of stars on the team either.
Yeah.
That one was a lot more like there was more rookies on it. So I think of Origin as like the bigger brand team. So in fairness, like yeah, Ocelot was kind of the first owner who was like an ex-player to make the team. But yeah, that
I think
killed the conversation. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no. Well, I was gonna say, in all honesty, yeah, I think the biggest difference is like the names on the roster, right? And this is Cadril using his brand power.
Yeah, I think of this as like a very obvious evolution of a streamer branded team, right? That's like the way the direction, and we talked about this with Disguise, but this is like very much the way the direction esports in general seems to be headed, with this idea of like big brands having watch parties to watch their team, right? Which happens to be your team because you love hanging out in the streamer's chat with like the other chatters, and you find the streamer funny, and you'd watch the team because the streamer owns it, right? So that's like kind of the direction a lot of it seems to be going in, not just in League but in other titles. So
I mean, even in traditional sports, they've started to do like co-streams for things, which I think is like really funny.
Yeah.
Most famously, I think people will say the Manning cast is one that people maybe watch. I don't know. But it's basically a co-stream with the Manning brothers. It's like, this is a traditional sports tangent. I guess it's off season, so people don't care if we go on tangents.
Yeah, I mean,
or
this
maybe
episode is already a giant tangent, so
yeah.
But
like, I think it is interesting because like, speaking as someone who's been on the English language broadcast for several international events now, it is really weird, the situation that sometimes we're in terms of balancing being like a homer broadcast versus being a broadcast that really, like, one of the things I try to do is like try to represent specifically LPL, LCK, and then a lot of the minor region teams as best I can, because people might not know about them because they don't watch them in season. But I think the thing that people respond to, and the thing that traditional sports has done for a really long time, is that you, like, if I'm listening to WEI in Boston, right? Because I don't know, I can't watch a Red Sox game here, but I can listen to it, or I can't watch a Bruins game here, but I can listen to it. The cast is like so biased, right? Like, it is hard, like, and that's an expectation. I'm not saying that is a bad thing at all. And so I think where esports sometimes was missing that, at least with English language broadcasts, because I know other language broadcasts really lean in at international events to supporting their own teams, is that now esports is catching up via co-streamers, and that's a big thing that I would see even other broadcasters talking about publicly, where they're like, I love so-and-so stream because they're obviously a huge fan of X player or like X team, and the passion really comes through, right? So that's like an interesting shift that I think co-streaming has like accelerated.
Yeah, I think this was something that, because we're talking about Cadril anyway, was something that really made him sort of explode, was that he was in some ways just unapologetically a fan of Weibo last year.
Weibo jacket, like, to the press conference.
The Weibros, and also like his EU co-streams were very like passionate in a way, and I think the reason why people gravitated towards it so much was because the competition was like the LS Dom, and I'm not saying that they're like bad personalities, but the popularity, like we've talked about this before, it's like the shittium creep, where most people kind of expect to see criticism, and criticism is usually the easiest way to be entertaining, right? Like if you get so upset about, oh man, I can't believe they're doing this, and oh my god, shit, and then everyone circle jerks because like Dom has explained this to them, or whoever has explained this to them, and now they understand. But it's like to just unapologetically be so entertaining by liking something, I think it's like challenging in a way, I think. And when you're good at it, people will sort of gravitate towards it. So I think that that's easy to do when you like physically own the team and you're very passionate about it. And you already have a brand that's like that, right? I'm not saying Cagel doesn't do critical content. He obviously does, but I'm just saying that was, and I'm not saying that Dom is negative all the time. Anyway, the point is, I think that was like something he did very well. And yeah, so I'm. Also, I remember this conversation being like very huge for the entire time I've been in esports, which is like casters shouldn't be biased. And I always remember like being like, no, they can be biased if they want. It's fine. The fact that you're mad about it probably means that they're being biased against your team, which increases the engagement and the enjoyment of the game because you're like, stupid caster, fuck off. Which makes you engage with it more than if the caster were unbiased, aka rooting for your team. Anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think when people are passionate about things, it's fun. And I myself try to be passionate about things. Although I will say, if I was ever doing, like, for example, a KT co-stream, it would be like just me losing my mind and being hyper critical. So, and that's just like who I am, right? Like, I would not be able to bring. I mean, it would just be, it would be a very different vibe. It'd be a very masochistic vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we can get to that. Anyway, that was a huge tangent.
Yeah, no. There's a lot. We do these a lot. This is like the perfect time to do tangents, but I think it segues well into, I think, what is pretty surprising, which is like a lot of people see the LEC rosters as kind of downsizing in pay even more, with some of the rumored rosters that are speculated to exist. I'm trying to pull one up. There's like the SK roster, which I wrote this. I was looking at it last night and I already forgot it. See, this is how significant it is. It's like I don't know most of these players. I don't know what's going on. I do recognize most of them, but
Rahel.
Yeah.
Luffy. Isma.
Yeah, Isma was one.
There's so many. I'm just like scrolling down the LEC roster rumor list, and there are so many. And the only confirmed changes are that like a bunch of people left their teams, not confirmed to go to another team.
No, this is not one of them. I got it. I was literally looking at this. So the Fnatic one is a separate conversation, and again, I think this is going to happen all the time. It's like you're always going to have half of the league deciding to spend less, and then like two teams going like, yes, we need to make the biggest brand team ever and win right now. That's very common in sports. Okay, so the SK one is Gen X, Isma, Reeker, Rahel, and Loopy is the speculated SK roster. So that means they're getting Gen X instead of Irrelevance and Reeker instead of Niski would be the big changes, and then Loopy instead of One. And then Giant X roster is Lot, Closer. And Closer, like, yes, he has a recognizable name, but he had a rough time this past year. He didn't get very many offers, so I'm sure he would just took whatever tier 1 offer would take him. Jackie's Noah and Jun. So both of these rosters have like double Korean bot lanes, and Noah and Jun from Fnatic, right? And then either players who were on the roster before or didn't have an LEC team last year, right? And then the Antonio retiring. GG's. Speaking of brand plays.
He's been around for so long. That's so crazy.
But I guess like he couldn't make it in LEC, so GG's. So I think like the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because I'm waiting to see like what Fnatic and G2 do, but I don't see it as super, at least from my perspective, I don't see it as anything that's super different from what LEC teams
we're doing
did previously. Yeah. I don't see like a significant, oh my gosh, no one is spending money.
Yeah, it feels relatively similar. I think the biggest thing I would call out is we probably are seeing more teams trends towards double Korean imports, probably for the same reason that LCS does, is because of the perception that they're like cheaper value for talent at the moment. I think that perception, and we've talked about this before, is a bit misguided because even LCK at this point is saying that they're struggling with finding like you can't just like turn over a rock on the solo queue ladder and find a diamond in the rough, which I think at a certain point you never could, because we've tried this before, like 10 years ago. It's kind of like your velvet shirt, you know? Fashion
Yeah,
trend.
I think they're, oh my god.
It's fashionable again. just import from the Korean ladder randomly.
Oh my god. We were talking about velvet blazers earlier. I have one from college. Now it's back. I can wear it again. Anyway,
Yeah.
I probably won't. I think the big thing for me is that the never could is something that's kind of important, because I feel like a lot of times, actually, I'll give Kevin Kim credit for this. He watches a lot, like, and by a lot, I mean he's the only person I know who watches every, like, not just the LCK Challengers, but like the academy. So basically the step before LCK Challengers, right? And he basically, there was one time where he was talking in a mutual Discord that we're in about this kind of myth of the super rookie and how every team really hopes that they can just immediately hit on a player from the ladder and they're going to be insane and it's going to work out super, super well, and they won't have to worry a lot about developing them because they'll just enter and they'll have hands and they'll learn, you know, macro immediately or whatever, or there'll be a player on the team that can help them or kind of move the pieces around a little bit more in terms of map play. And this so rarely happens, but I think that is something that teams still are going to flip on a lot because it's less effort than actually like
scouting.
Then actually scouting, then actually like taking the time to be like, okay, how long is it going to take for this player to legitimately improve into someone like truly, truly great, right? And like so many players really aren't given the grace to do that or the space to do that. And yeah, that's sad.
I mean, I guarantee you, if any team in dead last tells you that they put work into scouting, they're lying. Like it's so easy to not be last if you put work into scouting. It's just so easy because the standard is so low. And that's kind of the reality of the situation. So yeah, I mean it's a budget save because the perception is again like value for less money, but it's also like a perception, right? It's not necessarily accurate because you still had Immortals being Immortals with their, you know, with their 2 Korean imports that were allegedly value added, right? So yeah, I think it's just the reality of the situation is just if you do any kind of scouting, and maybe some of these teams do, like a lot of people had their eye on Noah, for example, before he joined LEC, and I think at this point a lot of LEC fans hate him, but that was because he was an okay player on a top team, and I think he's perfectly fine in LEC, right? Yeah. So. And he was like reasonably scouted and vetted for the league. It's just that he didn't always clutch up, I think was his biggest problem. To put it mildly.
I mean, he himself even talked about his own like mental health struggles, right? And how like they were compounded by making mistakes, which happens to a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I make one mistake and then suddenly I make fucking 50 billion mistakes. So yeah, I don't know. I relate to that a lot. And I also think like
when they're not thinking about, oh, my favorite sports team is ruined by this player.
Yeah.
When they're thinking rationally, I think they can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think all teams just really want to essentially hit on a player without having to do the work, because then you end up with a sick player and you maybe got them on a budget and you don't have to spend a lot of coaching time or effort into training them up to a point where they can be at the very least a domestic like championship winning player. So
there's a lot of research into stress, particularly financial stress, because obviously if you're playing badly, then suddenly you don't have a job, right? There's a lot of research into how stress drastically, like financial stress drastically impairs decision making. If you ask people a question about their salary before making them do a math problem, they will fuck it up. Or things like this, right? So it's definitely
an experiment.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I've actually been reading a lot of those lately. They're really interesting. But yeah, denunciator. Why are we discussing my life right now? I don't know. Not intentional. Not intentional. I hope it improves. But yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we want to actually talk about the individual rosters. There are a few interesting. So like I'll say that
really long tangents.
We've gone on really long tangents, and we do have kind of a hard out. The thing I'll say is, I think
we should talk about Fnatic and Caliste, but yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Finish your points.
Oh, let's talk about that first then, because I was gonna go somewhere else. But yeah, the rumored Fnatic roster and then Caliste.
Yeah, the Fnatic. You remember Fnatic roster is just adding Upset and Mickey X, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think.
And Grabs coach. So.
Oh yeah, and the Grabs.
Right?
Yeah. Which, for those of you who are like, is Grabs still alive? What was Grabs doing? He was on a very lucrative bench contract. Let's put it that way. He was getting paid to fuck off and do nothing for a very long time. And I think it was a 3-year deal, so that's now expired, and he's back. Hooray! Let's go. Yeah, like, I have a lot of respect for Grabs, for a lot of the ways he handles himself in public in terms of constantly taking the blame for things. I have limited interaction with his coaching abilities, but I at least respect that about him considerably. So, yeah.
I think it was also something that was discussed this past season specifically when it came to, I mean, by NA fans, I think, when they were looking at C9 and Mithy kind of taking a similar like I don't think he meant to do this, but he bore the brunt of a lot of fan ire, like a lot of it. And then went over to the FlyQuest org and then won a title and then had, I think, a higher than expected Worlds performance. So one thing that I respect Grabs a lot for is his willingness to essentially do the meme where it's like all of the knives and it's the soldier over the guy sleeping, and just taking blame for draft decisions, taking blame for other things sometimes to try to take the heat off the players themselves.
Yeah, he interviewed for EG, and I think like he did have a lot of thoughts about development, which were interesting. So I mean, like he definitely has some thoughts as well, and I think he's looking for a place that he can kind of make as his own. So maybe Fnatic are giving him that, but we'll see. The other interest, like obviously for me, the other interesting names are going to be like the Upset Mickey X. Upset Mickey X. See, my information is now like 8 years old because that was when I would talk to these players regularly. It's been a very long time, but at that time they were pretty close. They were friends early on, so it's possible that. And I remember like, yeah. So I think there's a big that there's maybe that wish list item that they had wanted to play together once upon a time. The other thing that I think people will immediately meme is like, okay, we got rid of Noah for an AD carry who's also not going to auto attack in team fights, but I wish him the best, regardless.
Yeah.
So Mickey X is.
So
huge,
I mean,
though.
I think the memes around Upset reached like a weird fever pitch this past year specifically. With the whole like KDA player, he's just gonna sit back and watch the rest of his team die. I know people are doing like that siren meme where it was like Upset's KDA is in danger, like back off, that kind of thing. I think some of that is a bit unfair. I am very curious though, because I do see Upset as more of a safe player, and I see Mickey X as the opposite of that in a good way, right? Because then you think about all the memes about Mickey, it's exactly the opposite. So I'm very curious to see, like, it's cool that you mentioned that they, as far as you know, like previously used to be friends, still are friends. Because if they have that like personal chemistry, I'd be curious to see if that translates into on the Rift chemistry, just because I do see their playstyles as a bit disparate. But I mean, it could completely work out. Like, you could have an example where Upset just plays safe in lane in a 1v2 and Mickey is all over the map, and that's probably going to be great for your team, depending, because Mickey sees the map really, really well. So yeah, it's like it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. I think the more cynical interpretation is that Mickey X and Upset got memed to such an extent that it became good for their brands, and so they were signed to Fnatic.
Yeah, they're opposite memes, right? So it's like where they unite, like either who wins or is it like just we meet in the middle and suddenly it's like magical.
It's like Fnatic saying Upset, despite all of his accolades, despite like people constantly saying he's good, has like never won an LEC championship, frequently like misses playoffs, XYZ, and they're like, I can fix him. We will be the first title for Upset. We will do it.
Not that I can fix him.
I can fix him. It's the most glorious timeline.
The fusion dance. I like that too.
Yeah. The fusion dance is good. Oh. But yeah. And Caliste, I think, is an interesting one. Because again, I think he's one of those players who people have such ridiculously high expectations for him that I don't think he will quite meet. But I mean, like, I said that about a sniper. I feel like Caliste is like at this point EU sniper, not to the same extent where it's like we've been waiting for him for 3 years since he was 12 and hit challenger or whatever, which I guess is 5 years. Wow, I'm old as fuck. Anyway, but it's now been like this. Oh my god, if Casey just had Caliste, they would have been fine. Like all this, I don't think he will quite hit that bar. But just from what I've seen of his play, but I mean, I think. He is, like I said, he is competent enough to be an LEC. He should be an LEC. He's an LEC caliber player. He'll be interesting to watch. So
yeah. I'll say I'm really excited for Caliste. I have a similar mindset as you, just mainly because of the overwhelming expectation and pressure that's going to place on him coming into LEC. Because all eyes are going to be on him, right? Like, people ourselves included, or at least I joked about it on the show about how KC was literally like a Caliste waiting room, right, for this year. And even so like, I'm not sure if people could see it on broadcast because we were not in France specifically, we were not the in-house broadcast, and I don't think we're the official Worlds feed because of that. I might be mistaken, but in the crowd, there were every single day in France, there were people in the crowd who were like heralding the new KC roster, and there were so many KC and Caliste fan signs, regardless of who was playing. And Caliste was actually also on the desk for, I believe, the last semifinal. And yeah, so there's just, the reason why I'm saying this is just because like this was already happening in person, and getting to witness in person the fan fervor already around Caliste was like, it's insane how much people are going to be like supporting him, but also really looking forward to his debut, and then potentially being very critical if he doesn't meet these like super high expectations. So my hope is that if he doesn't meet like the insane expectations that are placed on him, that at least people, again, just give him the grace to grow, because I do think he's a very individually talented player.
Yep.
But that's my wish for any player who has like a ton of expectation. Like, they're obviously talented. It's just like, give them time. Like, it's really rare that someone just comes on and is absolutely insane off the bat.
And it's like the casual rosters, they exist for a reason, right? But the I guess Caliste rosters exist because eventually, like, I'm not gonna put this pressure on him because I don't know if he's gonna be a future star, but it's like eventually one of these players will be Reckless or a whatever, right? They will be the players that will pull the viewership and make you watch the show. You need a team willing to do that, and that's why, like, traditionally in sports, like, the lower budget teams will have more developmental options, right? And I think sometimes we don't do that because everyone is trying to build a hype roster, and they think XYZ having like some hype over XYZ washed players is worth more than developing a player who will eventually just go to another team, right? And I think that that's like the big consideration point, which is like, we'll put all of this time and all this investment into building up a player, and if he turns out to be good, right, he'll just go somewhere else. And I think that that's like the big trade-off, that the org interest, like, ultimately in development does not really pan out unless you can build a squad like a FlyQuest, where you have a lot of really experienced players who want to play with rookies, and you can develop the rookie yourself, and then even then you're trickling like in maybe like one a year, right? So that's the trade-off there.
Yeah, I think I was going to make a hockey reference, so I'm not sure how many people will get it, but it's basically like, I think in a lot of traditional sports, you essentially just have drafts, right? And there's also just an expectation, depending on fan base, but like there's more of an expectation, I'll say, just because everything is so much more established, that like you can get a really high draft pick and your team can still suck, but you can still be super excited for that player and recognize that your org is in kind of a rebuilding year. Even though I know people hate, like, even in traditional sports, they fucking hate that, like, hearing that the team is rebuilding or trying to get back up to like where they were, but
they're not immortals and saying they're gonna win, you know? It's like, at least they're being honest.
Yeah. Well, I also think like it's esports fans just the expectation is that we do well now, right? Like esports is so truncated in terms of like fan expectation, performance expectation. It like a week in esports seems like a fucking year. I can cast said the Connor McDavid draft was pretty hype. It was. I was thinking of just using like Macklin Celebrini as a case study in terms of like he's really good. The Sharks still suck, but people are excited about him, right? So, and they're like aware of where the Sharks are at in terms of performance, which is not great. You could be worse. Could be my team. We suck, and we have a lot of well-known names. They're just getting old. Anyway. Continuing on.
It's the classic. I do. Old Man Cup is currently live. Not live, but it's back for season 2, and I watched the opening, and it is the funniest shit. And if I have time, which is a joke because I will not have time, I will actually translate it because it is fucking hilarious. Anyway.
Oh my God. That sounds amazing. I decided to nap so I could get up for oh my gosh, figure skating. But I'll try to watch some Old Man Cup when I'm not watching the Finlandia Trophy.
Promo, I was like thinking about it because even if you can't understand what they're saying, the promo is still just funny because it's like Zitai opening the fridge in the dark and looking and being like, and just looking and being shocked, you know, like someone's golfing, like there's just random shit happening. So even if you don't know what's happening, it's very funny. There's like this boardroom kind of like boardroom kind of vibe that they're going with. It's good. I recommend it.
I will watch it after this. Or probably after figure skating, because figure skating is also going on right now.
Yeah, we've been going for
and we've talked about
an hour, and we've talked about. I mean, we've made it through like
we've talked stuff. About it's just like all over the place.
I mean, this is normal off-season show stuff. Like, I'm always concerned that we won't have anything to talk about in off-season, but then we just talk about like shit that happened 8 years ago and go with it. So,
I mean, I also think the problem is that you and I aren't as interested in roster rumors until teams like as people until they're formed.
Roster rumors as people. Sorry, I don't know if that was so funny.
As people. I know the way I phrased that was terrible. But yeah, I think that is also part of the problem is that I feel like this is the least interesting, like where everyone else is just like, oh my gosh, who's gonna end up where? This rumor, that rumor. You and I were like, okay, just like when the rosters are finalized, then we'll talk about it. So I think that's another thing. The thing I was going to transition to though was all of the LTA rumors and people coming from like not just the LTA regions, but like a lot of really random rumors about people getting shuffled around to various South North teams.
Yeah, so at least Think Hard to Furia is interesting. There are a couple of, it was Socken and Winsome to was it Loud? Loud, I think, is the team. And then there's just like we briefly touched on it last time, but like the Abadage to DSG, which is not in the same vein, but just for me. And then there's like a lot of rumors of like Korean talent again that I'm less familiar with, going to both LTA South and LTA North teams. So I think to me it's interesting because it does sound like there might be it was Seus. Seus is allegedly going to Shopify. That was the one that was most interesting to me because I expected, at least for the first season, for there to be less spillover from south to north. But so that kind of piqued my interest, was the Seus to Shopify. So I knew at least one team might try it, but I didn't know if it would be first season. So I like it because I've always kind of been of the opinion that a lot of these players play on like the North American ladder anyway. The regional divide for like LATAM and maybe this will piss off Brazilian fans, but like in terms of them being imports, like Brazilian players and LATAM players, I always kind of thought that it makes like if they play on our ladder, then I mean it's the same talent pool. So and a lot of them do. And obviously there's a very active Brazilian server as well, so I'm not saying that like they all play on the NA server, but you will see a lot of them come up, right? So
Yeah.
So to me, I think it's interesting that that is happening, and it's better than seeing more of the lazy scouting strategy that we've seen. So I think I'm interested to see where that goes, for sure.
Yeah, I think the big one for me, that you didn't mention is also Saint to
okay.
potentially Lion. Because he would be coming from DK Challengers and he will have been. It's like another thing where when you're looking at, for example, the C9 rumor of Loki, I believe, going to C9, it's Saint that like everyone would be, I think, kind of looking at outside of the like if you're also looking at the KT Challengers roster and trying to get Zinni. Those would be the two like big mid laners that I think people would probably be looking at. So if Saint does go to Lion, that is, in my opinion, a huge surprise and a pretty big pickup in terms of like his performances in challengers and like how good people were expecting him to be and kind of hoping that he would potentially stay in LCK or like get promoted to LCK. But then the problem is, and I think we touched on this last year, good lord, last episode a little bit, but there's also like a weird stoppage, right? Where it's like, okay, Zinni is probably not going to promote because BDD is still there, right? Like he just signed him. Showmaker is not going anywhere. Although he did get eye surgery. That was his big off-season update is that he no longer has glasses and he looks completely different. It's kind of insane.
It's like She's All That, where she walks down the stairs wearing makeup and no glasses, and suddenly most attractive person in the LCK. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, like so he's probably not going to promote because you have Showmaker, and Showmaker is their franchise player, right? So yeah, there's also that kind of in play that is a weird, I'm not going to say underrated, but like unspoken as much aspect of when you want to see some of these young players who are like ready to play at a much higher level, then getting kind of stymied by the fact that there are still like incredible players in those roles still in LCK on the existing orgs.
Yeah, and also like two Icon Cast points, like Lion Gaming is a very old legacy org, but I think it was last active in 2017. Is that accurate? I'm trying to remember. But
Sounds it was right.
It's 16, been 20. Yeah, it was like it's like if TSM died, they did,
and then came back,
and then just like came back to life. Kind of that vibe, but it's like a very long time. Been again like 8 years. Why is all of my League memory like frozen in time from 8 years ago? I'm like, it's like what happened? How did this occur? But yeah, I think it's very. I think it's like very cool that is happening.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some value there in terms of just. I mean, Movistar is huge, right? As well, in terms of like their impact in at least the European scene, and it's Movistar R7, right? Rainbow 7 was Movistar this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Movistar is a very big brand that's been around for a while as well. Like they're I forget exactly what their like main business is. I think it is in like the Spanish entertainment sector. Um
That sounds right.
yeah, so I mean their name is Movistar, but you know.
Yeah.
but it's like I remember someone explained this to me again 8 years ago probably. Like where Movistar came from and the fact that they're actually like a relatively significant brand in the Spanish scene in terms of what they do outside of esports. Yeah,
they're also rumored to be.
Okay.
Oh no, I was gonna say they're also rumored to be keeping Audi, who is like
yeah,
still like the yeah. I mean, he's been around for such a long time. He is now just such a legacy player. There's also the rumor, I think, that Licorice was going to that team as well, so that should be interesting if true. But yeah, I am curious to see the Americas moves because I think the hope was that, again, maybe you'd be looking at internal talent from both regions, especially with it shrinking so much in the South. So to hear that there are so many like outside acquisitions is interesting. And again, a lot of this stuff isn't confirmed. So, but there are just a ton of rumors about players from the outside joining instead of having existing talent from that pool, especially with having eradicated.
Yeah. No, it's
what Brazilian teams in the Southern Conference. So yeah.
I think we have the C9 roster next. But in answer to your question briefly, Psycho Raven, lots of Nabadege back in NA. We talked about this last episode, and I just kind of talked about how it was funny that Disguise Toast's entire platform was American players only, and then the first rumor we hear about TSU and they join LCS. It's Amatage acquired. Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, C9's roster. I think as soon as it was announced that they were not going with JoJo, I expected the Korean mid. So, and obviously you already talked about Loki being kind of a hype prospect.
He's like good. I just said he wasn't as good as like a Saint or Zinni. That's all. Which like again, I think there was a lot of people who were questioning the pickups of like more specifically Quid than Quad, but like both of those players, right? And even though Quid really, really struggled initially, he ended up doing well this past year, and then Quad was really, really good for FlyC and FlyQuest. So again, I think whenever you have like a move like this, it's like, okay, how are they going to adjust and adapt?
Yep. Number one.
And I can't speak to how well Thanatos adjusted like personally. He kind of just seemed to be vibing. But in terms of on the Rift, the biggest things with him were that I felt like he was often disconnected from the team in terms of what they were doing, even on champions that he is like very highly proficient at. Like I think Gnar is a really good example of how, because the best idea, the platonic ideal of a good Gnar is like you are TPing into fights with full rage, or you have rage bar. Your rage bar management is really, really good in relation to what the rest of your team is doing, right? And this isn't to say that Thanatos is suddenly a bad Gnar. He's not. It's just that was one of the more obvious things to me when I was looking at like how well is he integrating onto the team, not personally, but just like literally on the Rift in terms of team communication. And team communication could have been a problem and not even do the language barrier, but it just seemed like that team was we talked about it literally all year. How it was like a bunch of players who, if they didn't get out to really early laning leads and were like pushing onto the opposing side of the map in lane, then they ended up having issues. I don't know if Loki will solve that. I think the big thing for me is I do trust. So the rumored roster is what? Thanatos, Blabber, Loki, Sven, Vulcan, right?
Yeah. We're running it back.
Yeah, I do think that Sven has a really good map understanding and a very specific idea of how he wants to play. And I think what C9 needs is potentially someone to just point them in a direction.
Maybe, yeah.
And potentially he can do that. I mean, I don't know, but like as an outsider trying to diagnose some of their issues, maybe that will help. I have no idea.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's definitely an option for a leadership move. The other thing is, like, I guess I expected it when Jojo and Blabber left, it would be a Korean mid. I think the other element is that, like, the tendency to kind of copy what was the most successful within your region at a very surface level analogy, which is like the hedgehogs foxes thing, which I'm gonna be on for a while. Which I don't know if I remember if I explained this last episode or not, but hedgehogs tend to like basically gravitate towards like the simplest thing and will ignore things that are counter to their like very simple big picture idea, and then foxes overcomplicate things sometimes to the point of crippling indecision and like take into account several nuances XYZ, and most people just ignore them anyway. But the hedgehog thing is gonna be very much gonna be like, oh, Quad was the best mid laner arguably in NACL 2024 this spring, right? And then he went and FlyQuest won the region by promoting him over a legacy resident mid, right? And ended up winning the region, right? So going for an okay Korean Challengers mid is still going to be better than promoting an NA mid, right? That's going to be like the big picture takeaway that orgs will have. I'm sorry, but you know that it's true, so you can squint and cringe at me the entire time.
I am still cringing. I know.
But that is going to be kind of
disagree.
the takeaway.
But I definitely think that is ignoring necessary nuance.
Yeah. So it's like ignoring nuance, but that's the big picture. That's easy to communicate to people. That will be the takeaway, right? Of what happened. So I think from that perspective, I can see a lot of LTA teams going for like the Lokis, or to your point, like the Zinnies and the. I'm sorry, I don't watch Korean Challengers. I already forgot the other name. Saint. Yes, the guy that you're actually excited about. I mean, yeah. Usually,
I don't have time to watch a lot of LCK Challengers either. I'm actually just going by a lot of what my friends who do cast it tell me.
Usually, I have watched, like, by this point in the off season, I've watched a lot of LCK Challengers because being on an NA team means you're required to scout everything that someone might bring up in a meeting so that you can say, no, that guy sucks. But you know, anecdotal experience. So yeah, I think that's
okay.
Yeah, this is like what would keep me up at night when I was on a team. It's like someone is gonna bring up some random Korean Challengers player, and everyone's gonna be on board for zero reason without watching the VODs. So by God, I'm just gonna have a document with all of the clips all the time. So yeah, that was the. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how they do. Like I said, like it has a vague sense of running it back with Sven and Vulcan, as well. Like it's a Reaper team, right? That's what it feels like. Like you've got your double Korean imports and the guys that he worked with last time, and that's, I mean, for better or worse, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. We had a more fun topic. I'm kind of wondering if we should just.
Now we don't have time for it.
Yeah. I'm kind of wondering if what we should do is we should just like pick a day and watch some VODs and like have that be an episode next week, because that might be more fun.
It'll be fun. Yeah. And then people can watch along too.
Yeah. That might be more fun, because like the topic we had planned was, because like LTA is dead, is we were going to talk about, I suggest, or LCS is dead, excuse me. LTA killed LCS. Whatever.
It ate it.
It ate it. It killed.
Spat out the bones.
It spilled coffee on it. We were going to talk about some like 2013, because that was the first year of LCS topics. So specifically like C9's rise, things like that. So it might be fun to just pick out some like LCS 2013 VODs and like watch party them. It's also the old graphics, so that'll be extra
It is
fun.
an eyesore. Those are some bright colors and some heavy color saturation.
But that might be something we do like next week, either instead of or in conjunction with a show. Like if Old Man Cup is gonna be on, I might just like co-stream Old Man Cup one day into like
maybe I'll show up for that,
and we can watch like some 2013 VODs after for double nostalgia. So
that'd be fun.
That'll be.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we can sort of. I might just call it, because I have.
Yeah, no, you have an out.
Yeah, I have an hour before I have to be at the airport. And it'll just give me.
Yeah, that would already be giving me anxiety.
I mean,
I would be like, I need to go.
Literally.
But I guess it's Idaho Airport.
Yeah, the Boise Airport is literally like 20 minutes away if I take a bus, 10 minutes away if I take an Uber. So it's not too much of an issue.
Is it like the Burlington International Airport, where every time I would fly out of Burlington International, the only reason it's called international is because it flew to Canada, and there are like a total of 11
it's kind of like that. I think it's like not, because I'm from Colorado, right? And then when I was young, they put in the DIA airport, which is a monstrosity for zero reason. And every time I have to travel through DIA, I want to cry. DIA is basically what LAX should be, but LAX is way too small to be DIA, and that's why LAX is like always overcrowded. You can never find parking. It's always miserable. But DIA is just like, it literally takes you 10 minutes to walk halfway through one of the concourses. It's absurd. Yeah. But yeah, Boise is, so like my frame of reference for what is a big airport is irreparably destroyed. So I think Boise is like relatively mid-size. It's not quite like.
Yeah, I mean, Boise is way larger than Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah. I think there was like a very tiny airport that I was at for a job interview recently. Oh, it was in Pennsylvania. It was super tiny. I can't remember what it was, but it was very tiny. But yeah, I think it's. Anyway, I will, however, promote. This is like required of me. Boise State Esports YouTube. Even if you don't watch it, we literally held our students per diem hostage to subscribe to it, because my boss would like to get above 1,000 subscribers so that we can monetize it.
Nice.
And I think like the production value we're putting into it is really good for the views it's getting. Like we have like a professional VO who did like Street Fighter, like old Street Fighter announcements, like ready,
wow,
fight, and he's like doing the VO because he's an Idaho native and he likes Boise State. So, yeah, I mean, there's like, and the camera angles are like pretty sick. Like we have a guy who's a full-time employee but also a full-time student who does all the camera work, and it's like really like some of the shots I'm like, that's really good, and it gets like 50 or so views per episode, and I'm just like, damn, we need some subs. So if you're if you want to, you know, you can subscribe, falsely inflate our sub count. It'll be a good time. All right,
we'll do my part.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, otherwise, do you have anything to plug, Emily?
I have a Blue Sky account now, like
Nice.
I said. It's been fun. I also legitimately, hopefully by the end of, I would say like next week, if not the week after, I'm going to be looking for guinea pigs to read a short story.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, and I actually might do the psycho thing that I mentioned, where I am in the process of rewriting it at least once, just for verb tenses, and person point of view, because so many things are written in first person and not like third person limited, but I'm trying out both of them. So this is all semantics that no one cares about, but I will be looking for guinea pig readers. Ooh, so I'll make the call when that happens. You're already like top of the list, and Ben. Yeah.
Well, so I can do a dramatic reading on stream.
Don't, I need to try to make money off this.
Dramatic reading.
Or like don't until I actually somehow manage to get
sure. Published. I can do like an excerpt, you know?
Yeah.
If you have any like if you have any like salacious scenes, like I can cut just before, you know. If you want
for the family.
Out, yeah, you know, if you want the porn, buy the book.
Sadly, there's no porn, which I shouldn't say. I should have just not said that and left the people guessing.
Exactly.
Damn, I've already shot myself in the foot. Okay.
I just assumed there was porn because you told me it was sapphic, and like, what's the point of sapphic fiction if there's
there's a lot of longing, and there's a lot of longing and tragedy.
Oh no, that sounds very sapphic, actually. Sapphic.
It's like literally the entire story. Anyway,
so what we have learned
I hope people enjoyed this episode. It's all over the place.
Exactly. I don't know if this was the least structured making the rounds we've ever done, because that's probably not even true. But
no, it's probably not. But it was one of them. It certainly was an episode of all time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone. We will see you next week, and enjoy the roster rumors.